So The Shining got a re-release. I'm not sure why, if it was an anniversary or something. There were a lot of re-releases this month, so I went to see a lot of movies that have been out for a long time. And to be honest, The Shining is one of the best horror movies of all time. A lot of people think that. I'm inclined to agree, although it is a very flawed film, and it's flawed in a lot of ways that I think, depending on your ability to accept certain creative artistic liberties, depends on how much you will enjoy this film to an extent. Because it's hard to argue that it's not perfectly directed and perfectly shot, and the acting is just about perfect. I think all of the casting is excellent. I think Jack Nicholson is just as a psychotic writer this is his best role that I've seen him in, and he's absolutely nuts, but he's a sympathetic kind of nuts because it's not really his fault that he's out of his mind, or is it? You don't know, because it's very there's a lot to his character that doesn't really come to the surface. It's all in the background, and a lot of things happen in the movie that they can't really just be explained away. So you never really know what Jack, his character's name, is really thinking, and that's kind of what makes him sort of a sympathetic character, but also the villain. Shelley Duvall as the damsel in distress in this movie, or sort of. She's kind of was directed by Kubrick to just run around and scream the whole film and freak out at all the horrible things happening. If you haven't seen the movie, basically, it's the most simple thing in the world. A couple goes on a trip to a cabin, or I'm sorry, not a cabin. It's like a resort, a mansion, hotel type thing. But it's like one of those movies where a bunch of people go out to a desolate place like a cabin. So they're in this big hotel, which is almost like a mansion with a massive hedge maze in the back, and basically just a bunch of crazy stuff happens. Not all of it explained. In fact, most of it is inexplicable because the movie is about insanity and how inexplicable insanity is. Their son Danny, I don't know the actor's name, but he's actually really good in this movie also, in that he never really seems like he's directing anything at the camera like an actor. He just seems to be reading things as though they're just coming into his brain, which is kind of how kids tend to think. So as kind of a vessel for the evil stuff in this movie, he works great. Pretty much not a lot to really say about the plot, because actually there is a lot to say, but it's hard to explain it without spoiling it, so this will be a spoiler review. Basically, the idea is that their youngest son, Danny, the couple, or not their youngest son, their only son, Danny, he has a gift called The Shining, which is from the Stephen King book, I'm assuming. But I don't think that really figures into Kubrick's vision for this movie, because it's just kind of there. It doesn't really need to be there, because Jack's crazy anyway, and Wendy, who was played by Shelley Duvall, she's crazy at the end. She goes nuts. So they're all hysterical. So there's no real reason that this little kid needs this power, because everybody's nuts. And there's also a weird, hilarious, and strange scene early in the movie where the groundskeeper, I forget if they say his name, not the groundskeeper. Yeah, the groundskeeper. I'm sorry, I'm confusing groundskeeper with the caretaker. The groundskeeper is communicating psychically to Danny about ice cream. And it's so strange and so weird and just so out of place with the rest of the movie that I kind of get the vibe this is supposed to be a dark comedy. And there's a couple reasons I think that. There's a scene where there's these black screens that show the day in which things are occurring, and one of them just pops up and it says Tuesday, and there's this loud, violent, shocking noise because it's Tuesday, and then it just cuts to Shelley Duvall emptying a can of peaches into a bowl or something, and it's just okay. But there are a lot of scenes like that, and most of Jack Nicholson's performance here is just chewing the scenery, and a lot of it, if taken out of context and with the music removed, would be pretty damn funny. And I laughed at a lot of stuff in this movie this time when I saw it in the theater. It's just hilarious. His character is just so out there. He's like a cartoon character. In fact, Danny's watching Looney Tunes at one point, and that's basically what Jack Nicholson is doing during these psychotic scenes. He's doing a cartoon character impersonation. It is a dark comedy to me because I crack up at this movie, and There's a lot of really disturbing, shocking imagery, but I think that it's all there just for Kubrick to say, okay, are you scared now? Because that's not really like the vibe I get from this movie. I get that it's funny. I mean, it is scary. It's scary in a different way, though, because as a thriller, it works perfectly. It's absolutely perfect because Shelley Duvall, when she looks freaked out in this movie, you really get the feeling that she's going psychotic. Jack Nicholson, you never know what he's going to do, and pretty much just the isolation of the place that they're at. It's a hedge. It's the mansion and the hedge maze and all that stuff. It's all just the entire first 2/3 of this. Well, first half of this movie is just foreshadowing, and once it gets into the actions, the thriller scenes, you can just throw all the supernatural stuff out the window. And there are ghosts in this movie, and the ghosts don't need to be there. You could make this movie without the ghosts, and it would still be an effective thriller. But I think it's better with the ghosts because if you pay attention to the dialogue carefully, you don't have to. But if you do, and it took me a couple watches to really pay attention because there's so much going on with you're just worried that you just want to see that the kid is gonna and the wife are gonna survive the first time you watch this movie. The second time, you really get the vibe that it's all pieced together perfectly. And that makes it a little more unsettling because Jack Nicholson is replacing the caretaker, the prior caretaker. So there's a scene where like a naked woman comes out of the shower and then she's beautiful and then Jack makes out with her and she turns into like this ghastly dead woman and she's aged 40 years and it's just the creepiest thing ever. And she's got these scars on her body from like water, kind of like a dead body if it's soaked in water. I guess lesions, and it's kind of like that is the wife of the caretaker, who you find out through this very casual bit of exposition that he, for whatever reason, he killed his two daughters, who are the two girls that everybody knows about in the movie. He killed her and his wife, who is obviously the woman in the shower. And the weird thing is that even Wendy at the end sees the caretaker, so the caretaker is real, at least as real as he would be to all three characters. But there's also a line in the beginning of this movie by the groundskeeper, Scatman Crothers' character, and he says something like, "The Shining is like it's a signature. It's just something. It's like an echo or a reflection." And I really think that's a really meaningful line, and it really makes this movie mean something because if you watch it carefully, a lot of the scenes are cut to something, cut back, cut to something, and it's different. Obviously, the ghosts. The first time the ghosts appear is when I think it's the first time is when Jack is in the he's in the bar where all the alcohol has been removed because they lock it away for insurance reasons. But what happens is the bartender is there, and all of a sudden it goes from an empty bar to like this stocked shelf with liquor, and he has a drink and he has a conversation, and then it just cuts there and cuts back, and there's a lot of things like that. And of course, the reflection theme is everywhere in this movie. Obviously, red rum, murder spelled backwards. That's there. A lot of the there's a scene where he's riding across. Danny's riding his tricycle, I guess it is, across like these strips of carpet and wood, and you hear the sounds changing as he rides over each, kind of just to show like a sense of duality, which doesn't really signify anything on its own. But when you look at this movie as a completed piece, there are a lot of things that symbolize a sort of duality among the characters, and it's really intriguing. And I think that sense of duality is in all of Kubrick's movies. It's obviously it's in Full Metal Jacket, but I think it's also in A Clockwork Orange, and I think it's in 2001. Just a sense of just the number two as just two things and just comparing things, because people tend to think in binaries, and he uses binaries a lot in his movies. So if you just start to look for these patterns, these binaries, they're all over in his movies, and he's doing them on purpose because there are times when he specifically does it. He also does weird stuff, like I'm pretty sure it goes, the days of the week in the movie go Tuesday, then Monday, then Wednesday. So you're supposed to confuse it. So you think that it's been 3 days that have passed, but it's actually an unknown amount of time that's passed. And I think that's cool. And before I wrap this review up, because I don't want to spoil the entire thing, I've explained enough about it to at least make it sound interesting. Obviously, there's going to be a bajillion reviews of this movie, but I wanted to review it myself. The last scene was changed by Kubrick. It was supposed to be, I think, that something like Jack never actually was at the resort or something, which is kind of a stupid ending, but I don't think it's that. It was something like that. But he changed it at the last moment after he screened it for audiences. And he changed it to just a photograph after you see Jack frozen, which is hilarious, kind of. Just seeing this guy frozen in snow after all this is hilarious and also disturbing at the same time. But there's a scene where he's just shown among the people at the party he was at. And he's just sort of there. He's in the background. And I think that's so cool because it shows that he got to join their group, this ghastly group of undead, I guess. He just joined them symbolically because he tried to carry out their ideals. So at least in the sense that I think in Jack's own head, when he froze in the snow, he got away with it. And I think he did fulfill what he was supposed to do based on what the ghosts were telling him, because they want him to kill the groundskeeper because the groundskeeper is black. I'm not kidding about that. That's actually... There's a very casual, polite line about this and with the previous caretaker, which is also one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it's so casual, but they're talking about extremely dark things in coded language. And if you don't watch that scene carefully, if you just watch it just for the pleasantries being shared, it's kind of like you don't really get the sense that there's something really dark. He's basically saying kill the groundskeeper and then take care of your family, or in other words, kill your family also. It's very dark, and there's a lot of things like this that in this movie, and a lot of just symbolic imagery that I think everybody knows, especially that opening elevator with the blood just pouring, and it's kind of just I think that's just Kubrick's symbolic idea of just people. The gore in movies can go so over the top. Well, how about just fill an elevator with blood? I don't know that's what his intention was with that scene, but that's what I take from it, because there's not really a lot of gore in this movie. I mean, this was before movies got really, really gory. But the gore is just, it's placed just in these places where it's very tasteful. And I forget the word that's used. Baroque, I think, is the word that's been used to describe it. And I don't know what the Baroque style means. But the movie is very minimalist. It's very zoomed out. The music is very minimalist, but it's shrill. And there's the passage of time. If you can see it in the theater, you will kind of space out for a bit. You might get bored, but you'll space out for a bit because the movie really distorts the passage of time really well. It's really geniusly done that way. So I would say this is almost a perfect movie. It definitely has its flaws in the narrative, but that's probably more because Stephen King is not a perfect writer, and I think that if Kubrick had just taken this and hijacked it and made it whatever the hell he wanted, which he kind of did, but if he had just gone all the way, I think it would have been a better movie.